and then I'll come alive. This is what I love about these old Italian cars. It's just so much character. First off, I love how starting this car up is like a ritual. You know, in new cars, you just press the start button. That's it. This car, you gotta concentrate. Even starting the car, you have to concentrate. And then you're greeted with this juicy responsiveness. And because everything in this car is so soft, this car drives like a ballerina. And when you rev it, the whole car just shakes and twists. You can feel the transfer of energy from the engine to the chassis. I don't know if you can see this, but the whole car twists. The engine mounts on this car, they're stock, so they're relatively soft, and I like it that way. So let's start driving, and then we can talk more about this car. The other thing which I showed you is this car needs to be woken up. All the gauges need to be woken up. The engine needs to be woken up. It feels alive. It feels like this car has soul. I know people say that, it's very cliche, but it's so true. Wake up, see? Just woke up. Even the Speedo, he just woke up. Don't you just love that? And even just driving at speeds like this, enjoyable, so enjoyable. So this car actually it belonged to my uncle, not the same uncle. For those of you who have been watching my other videos, not the same uncle that gave me the M5. This is another uncle who owned this car for, I think, some time, and he just stopped driving it, and it was just sitting there. And I had been asking him for a very long time. It's a very similar story to the M5. I kept asking him, can you sell me the M5? Can you sell me the GTV? Can you please sell me the GTV? Until finally he buckled. And I bought the car from him, I think around 3.5 years ago. When I first bought it, this car was completely stock. So it had the 1750 engine. Since then, I had done quite a lot to it. So the engine in this car is no longer the original engine that came with this car. I kept the original engine in a crate, of course, you know, for in case I want to swap it back one day. But the engine in this particular car right now is a 2-liter from a 2000 GTV, and I have upgraded the internals quite significantly. So it has high compression pistons. I believe it's a 12-to-1, so it's like a dome shaped piston, and it has custom cams. The engine was imported from Greece, from a good friend of mine in Greece, and he builds these engines for a living. So he built this engine for me and sent it to Thailand. Came a long way. Some other things I would like to talk about in terms of mods. Instead of a standard distributor, I'm using one of those 123 Bluetooth electronic distributors, and to be honest, it might be a bit controversial because it's kind of a digital part in an analog car, but I really like it because In a normal distributor, the ignition advance, it's controlled by just basically springs that's holding the rotors, right? But the digital version, you can tune it however you like. So you could tweak this graph, which basically graphs out RPM versus ignition advance, and you can just graph it by yourself. So what I did was, I went online, I looked at all of the performance distributors that were made for the 105 series, and I just copied them. I used those as my benchmark, and then I tweaked it from there. I gave it more advance in some places and retarded the ignition in some other places, and now I have my own custom curve. How awesome is that, right? And as soon as I installed it, oh my god, it totally transformed the car. It became a beast. The other thing that I did, the gearbox left untouched. I believe it has a Kevlar clutch. Really easy to use, actually, no complaints. And most recently, I changed the diffs. So the rear diff has a different ratio. I don't remember the exact ratio, but that also means the speedo is incorrect and the engine revs are incorrect. So it may look like it's going much faster than it is. It may also look like the revs are much higher than it is. The fun thing is, now it seems like the car can rev up to 8,000 plus. Even though I set a rev limiter, that's one of the things you can do with the distributor. You can set a rev limiter. So I set it at like 774, I believe, if I remember correctly. And it drives beautifully. Beautifully. Did I mention the wind noise? The wind noise. Yeah, it's significant. So this is a driver's car. It's definitely not a showroom beauty contest car, you know. You saw the paint in the beginning of my video. It's a car that I can just focus on driving and not give a damn about ruining the paint, because the paint on this is not original to start with. The original color is beige kava, which I actually really like, but I bought the car after it was repainted, so I'm just gonna keep it like this for now. And I do plan to restore it back to the original beige color, just not yet, because I enjoy driving it and not caring about the paint. I drive this car pretty hard most of the time, taking it to the track. Obviously, I cannot do a first impression video because this is my car, so there aren't that many things that stand out to me at this point anymore, because I'm just so used to this car. It's like an old shoe for me. But you can probably tell the best part of this car is the engine. Everyone who's driven it has been shocked by how good this engine is. Look at that. Can you believe this car is from the 60s? I mean, granted that this is not a standard engine, it's been modified. I actually don't know how many horsepower it's making, but if I had to guess, it's probably around 150. No limited slip diff. It pulls so hard, like the torque in this is unbelievable. For such an old car on carburetors, come on, man. And it dances. The chassis dances. It's so predictable. It's not a precision tool. You cannot really abuse it too much. It's all about the transitions. You have to be smooth with everything. If you are violent and it's raining like this, you will pay. You will pay. The car will spin. Whoa. Look. These are pretty big bumps, and it took them like a boss. The ownership of this car, is it reliable? As a matter of fact, this is one of the most reliable cars that I do own. It's so simple. There's not much that really can go wrong with it. Everything that can go wrong is mostly mechanical. And so if you stay on top of the mechanical maintenance, this car will run. You just need to make sure you let it warm up like I did. You check the oil levels. You top it up at the right times. This car will treat you well. One other thing that I probably should mention, for those of you who's never driven a car like this, is the shifter. These cars, they are fitted with one of those early soft synchro meshes. So a shift, it actually takes 2 steps. You put it into gear and then you confirm the gear shift. And it's so satisfying. It's as if you need to be at the right revs, and then the car will let you do the gear shift. Then the car will let you in. If you mistreat it, nope, it's not gonna go in. In fact, you will probably start grinding the gears. But once you learn the car, once you get used to the car, it becomes second nature. You don't even have to think about it, and that's why it's so rewarding. These old cars, they are like instruments, not like appliances, like musical instruments. You have to learn to drive these cars. Things don't come labeled for you. When's the last time you saw like a piano keyboard where all the notes are labeled for you? No, you have to commit and learn how to drive this car. It's not an appliance where the car tells you, don't turn off the traction control, it might be dangerous, you shouldn't shift at this point because this and that. No, everything is based on your skills. You have to learn. And if you don't learn, you pay for it. The other day, a standard one. This doesn't feel much slower in medium to low speeds. Such a great car. course, it's not as precise. The steering is probably the worst part of this car. There's a lot of free play and there's not much road feel. But none of that matters. None of that matters because of the character and the soul of this car. Thank you. I didn't go on the sky bridge because I learned my lesson. When it's raining, the expansion joints are wet, and when the expansion joints are wet, don't go on the sky bridge. It's really dangerous. Look, the FR is pretty good. For this video, I didn't really talk much about how this car drives because I'm just so used to it and nothing really is a standout for me anymore. These old cars, they're just so magical. You don't want to get caught up with all these stats, you know. When you drive an old car like this one, you ask yourself, this car is 50 years old, but this engine is one of the sweetest, fizziest engines that I have ever experienced. And in 50 years, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time for other car manufacturers to create equally fizzy engines. But most of them failed. And that's why this car is so special. It honestly is a pleasure at just any speed because of the sound. It's not obnoxious because all that sound is it's all coming from the front of the engine. It's the Webbers. They're making that magical sound. The exhaust is not loud at all. I made sure the exhaust is not too loud. This just sounds like a very phlegmy opera singer, you know? It's phlegmy, it's organic. It's none of that burble tune stuff you see these days in cars. It's so fake. It's like artificial pops and bangs. This car, it does create pops and bangs once in a while if you drive it hard enough. It happens sometimes in the front, sometimes in the back. And it's just very organic, like a phlegmy opera singer.